So the creatures now start reverting back to their old patterns and experiences of themselves, and they start questioning this little boy as to why they're not happy anymore and why are the problems coming back. And the little boy, you can see because of his deep nature, he understands what they're saying because he's experiencing the same thing. So he is able to look at what they're saying to him, and then he says, look, just stick with me and you'll be fine. And the creatures for a while will do that, but eventually after a while, the problems start escalating and the creatures start getting really unhappy. And what's fascinating about the whole thing is that these creatures have a very, to put it bluntly, very schizophrenic nature. Meaning, from one minute, these big, lovable creatures, now they depict these creatures to be very fluffy and lovable, and he can at any moment jump on one of them, and they'll tussle around in the grass, and be like all goofy. And in a moment like this, an interaction within the group will trigger a point, which is not very teddy bear and fantasy-like. An adult issue will come in, and then the one beast will be jealous because the other beast is spending too much time with the little boy, or this one's girlfriend left him and then she comes back, and then now he's dead. And then these big creatures will actually turn like that, and they'll become angry and upset, and they'll snap at the little boy. And in the end, actually, some of these creatures become almost demon possessed, where the one creature actually says to the little boy, I know you're not a king, and you better watch out because I'm gonna get you. And she shows her teeth to him, and the other creature quickly takes the little boy away and warns the other one, don't you go near him. And then this one big creature that was like his favorite, his companion that went everywhere with him, in the end his sadness returns and says, why can't you make me happy? You're supposed to be the king. And then becomes all loony in his head and actually starts saying to the boy, you're not really a king, you lied to us, you deceived me, and then snaps at the boy. And then goes for the boy, like in a rage, actually lunges at the boy and chases the boy, and eventually the boy has to hide. And this creature goes back to this one cave where they were living and starts smashing the furniture and sobbing uncontrollably. And they actually show you close-ups of this creature's face and how he processes emotions. You'll see him, for example, like, he's thinking about his problems, and then and then he cries, and then he goes, yeah, and then so they really in depth, up close, showing this creature's throughout the entire movie how he will bounce up and down from one emotional state to the next. And what's interesting is then the boy actually realizes at that point, you can see that he realizes that he had been giving his mom a really bad time because these creatures are doing to him what he did to his mom. And he then says to the creatures, I actually want to go back to my mom. So at that point you understand, haha, this kid has actually had a realization. But what's interesting is that as he realizes this point of, I'm going to go back to my mom, it doesn't, from the perspective of if you during the movie thought, oh, this kid created creatures from within his mind and he's participating in an alternate reality of his mind to sort out his issues, you would think that the minute he had this grand realization that, oh, actually they're doing to me what I did to my mom, that's not cool, I realized my mom is actually doing her best and I was being a brat and maybe I should be more supportive of my mom equally. The minute he realizes that it doesn't sort out the problem with creatures, in fact the creatures, they all like revert back to their old pattern, which some of them are like walking around depressed. The one creature, as I said, kept crying the whole time. And what was interesting is as they put this little boy back in his little boat and they were pushing him off into the ocean, the one creature comes running down the beach, and the one that was crying a lot, and actually ran into the water and was sobbing his little heart out. And this little boy just sat in the boat like this and just stared at him, as if he was cutting himself off from this that he had created already, which is fascinating. It's not that the creature, sometimes in these fantasy movies you'll have the point play out where the being will have a realization and then their fantasy world will adapt according to the child's realization. And this didn't happen. Each creature, as he was saying goodbye to them on the beach, each creature was like basically back in their old pattern. The shy one was shy, the happy one was happy, the aggressive one was like kind of hanging in the background, like giving them weird stares, and the sad one was sobbing his brains out. And this little kid got in his little boat and he watched them and he rowed off into the distance, and he came back home and his mom was sitting in the house frantic because now maybe he's been gone for a few days, and he runs into the house and she gives him a big hug, and then they stare at each other just for a very long time. And the mom's smiling at him and then he starts smiling at her, and you realize that in that moment he was remaining constant in the point that he realized he had been that towards her, and he was now actually looking at his mom for the first time and embracing her and being there and not giving her shit basically and just being cool. And the mom was looking back at him and she was for the first time looking at him and seeing him for who he was.